All right. So I see that it is 12 o'clock Eastern time. So we're going to go ahead and get started. We want to be respectful of all of your time. Hello and welcome to today's webinar. Thank you so much for being here today. And we want to start by thanking the Navy Child and Youth Programs for making our webinar today possible. We also want to thank you for taking that initial poll. I see that we have parents here, we have some counselors, educators, a lot of folks joining us for our webinar today. We always welcome professionals who work with military connected children to our webinars. And I think you're going to find the information that we talk about today really useful. We do want to note that the target audience of our MCEC Parent Support webinars is parents. So we just want you to keep that in mind as we go through our presentation today. Before we introduce ourselves, I just want to share with you a bit more about Military Child Education Coalition and our mission. The Military Child Education Coalition, or MCEC, is a nonprofit organization established more than 25 years ago. This past summer was actually our 25th birthday. And our mission is to support all military-connected children by educating, advocating, and collaborating to resolve those education challenges associated with our unique military lifestyle. In 2005, MCEC formalized support and programming for military-connected parents so that they also might be empowered, informed, and proactive in supporting their children's education journey. We strive to deliver both informative and interactive webinars that address academic, social, and emotional issues associated with this military family lifestyle. Our vision at MCEC is for every military connected child to be college, work, and life ready. My name is Catherine Katowski. I have been with MCEC since early 2021. I am myself a military spouse. I've been married to an active duty soldier for the past 16 years, and we have 3 military connected children in 9th grade, 7th grade, and 5th grade. So we have the entire range of elementary to high school covered. And I'm joined by Nikki Harrison, who will introduce herself.
Well, you guys got a little sneak peek there with my slides, but my name is Nikki Harrison. I have been with MCEC since 2018, so this year was my 5th anniversary. I was an active duty military spouse for 20 years, and now I'm a veteran spouse to a retired Marine. And we have 2 sons. I have a senior, so I'm very bittersweet right now with him graduating high school. And then our youngest is in 8th grade. So really excited for you all to be here today for this webinar. So we'd like to do just a few administrative announcements before we continue. At the end of this webinar, there will be a survey. We've got a great QR code and we'll put the links in the chat box. We would love for you to take that survey. It lets us know how we're doing. It lets our funders know how we're doing. And it just takes a few minutes to complete. So we would appreciate your feedback on that. If you haven't found your chat box already, it's a little dialogue bubble either at the top or bottom of your screen. If you could open that up, we'd love for you to share and let us know where you're joining from. We will be putting our downloadable resource in there and just really would love for you to engage in the chat box with us as we continue with the webinar today. Also, make sure that if you haven't, change that little drop-down menu to everyone if you'd like to share your comments with the group. Sometimes it just says hosts and panelists, so we would love for you to share with everyone as well. If you're joining by phone, we can email that resource to you, so please feel free to send us your email in just a private message, and we will get that downloadable resource to you. I see so many people joining us from all over Texas, South Carolina. I live in Texas. I always forget to say I live in El Paso, Texas. So looks like all over. So thank you for joining us. We appreciate it. And lastly, we would like to let you know that this webinar will be recorded and you'll be able to review this later. So if you have any technical difficulties, you'll receive this recording in an email when you registered, and you'll be able to access it on our website as well as on YouTube. Eventually, it will go to YouTube. So we are recording. Okay, so mental health is a topic that we're hearing a lot about these days, and for a very good reason. It's a critical piece to our children's health and well-being, and today we want to talk about the importance of really staying vigilant and actively working on building and maintaining our children's mental health to ensure their well-being now and, of course, in the future. But before we dive into our topic, please know that we are not mental health professionals or physicians, and this webinar is not intended to be a substitute for any professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of the counselor, physician, or qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding mental health conditions or concerns. And please don't ever disregard any professional medical advice or delay seeking it because of the information or resources you receive today. So our objectives really for today for our webinar is for you to be able to kind of recognize the importance of mental health and wellness in our military children and our military connected children, which is really important as well. Identify those well-being strategies that support our military connected children and youth. That's important as well. And then lastly, we're going to share a ton of resources, including our MCEC Military Child Wellbeing Toolkit. So we're going to have so many resources available to you. And I will make sure, actually just now, I'm going to put in the chat box our downloadable resource, which is in a PDF that you can download that also has all of those resources as well. And so I'm going to turn it over to Catherine.
Thanks so much, Nikki. So when we use the term well-being, we're referring to that overall sense of satisfaction and wellness. This is going to encompass not only our physical health, but also our mental health as well. Mental health includes that social, emotional, and psychological aspect of life. And it is absolutely just as essential to a child's overall well-being as their physical health. As our friends at Sesame Street for Military Families have pointed out, helping our families build and maintain a strong body and a strong mind is one of the most important things that we as parents can do to prepare our kids to handle those inevitable challenges and stresses that accompany all lives, but especially the military lifestyle. Because maintaining mental health is absolutely important for everyone, but it's especially crucial for military families. Unfortunately, despite our increasing awareness, as Nikki mentioned, and conversation about mental health challenges have continued to be on the rise among children and teens in recent years. National surveys are showing an alarming increase in the prevalence of youth mental health issues, including signs of depression and suicidal ideation. The Surgeon General's 2021 advisory on protecting youth mental health help sound the alarm on that mental health crisis that our kids and our teens are experiencing. And I'm going to put a link to that in your chat box. So the advisory highlights the fact that while absolutely everyone, including us, including our parents, including our grandparents, experienced problems during our childhood and our adolescence, our kids today are facing challenges that are unprecedented and incredibly difficult to navigate. They're dealing with things daily that a lot of us never even thought about when we were kids and teens. For example, researchers are suggesting that the growing use of social media and other digital media could potentially be a contributing factor, along with increasing academic pressure, all that pressure for kids to be great and perfect all the time. Our kids are constantly exposed to images and messaging about all the ways that they aren't quote unquote good enough. Children are not immune or even entirely oblivious also to the stress of broader societal issues, especially lately, things like war, international conflict, racial injustice, gun violence, the opioid epidemic, and climate change. And the results are pretty devastating. In 2019, 1 out of 3 high school students reported persistent feelings of sadness or hopelessness. And when researchers looked into the data more of just the female students, that number increased to 1 out of 2. Those numbers, even more alarming was the fact that those numbers were a 40% increase from the same survey taken 10 years prior in 2009. And that was before the pandemic. Between March 2020 and the release of that advisory in December 2021, rates of psychological distress among kids and teens only increased. For our military connected kids, they still experience all those stressors that their civilian peers experience, plus the unique challenges associated with their military lifestyle. things like those frequent moves and transitions, their interrupted education as they're moving from school to school, experiencing family separations, be it for training or TDY or temporary duty, or what we refer to sometimes as geobaching, where the service member is stationed somewhere differently than the family, or also, of course, deployments. Also, sometimes military kids have those feelings of a lack of control or agency over their own lives. They may never be quite sure what the next year or 2 years is going to look like. So they can sometimes feel like they're living under this cloud of uncertainty. And of course, as we mentioned, they also have exposure, but they may also have increased awareness of those global conflicts. Perhaps unsurprisingly, as most military parents will tell you, studies suggest that those challenges and experiences may have a direct or indirect impact on the mental health of military connected children, particularly with respect to deployment and family separation. Studies have definitely pointed to a negative influence on kids' mental health. We also want to take a moment to note that among our military connected children, there is a subset of youth who live with a service member or veteran who is experiencing a combat related injury or illness even after they have returned home. These injuries or illnesses may be the visible kinds, like a burn or an amputation, but that also includes those invisible wounds, which could be traumatic brain injury, PTSD, anxiety, or depression. And sometimes the children or youth that live with them with an injured or ill service member may be contributing to the care of that injured or ill service member or veteran. And these kids are sometimes referred to as youth caregivers. We're going to put a link in your chat box in just a moment to a report produced by the Elizabeth Dole Foundation in conjunction with the Wounded Warrior Project that has great details and really provides a lot of information about youth caregivers. We know that parental health and well-being, including mental health, directly impacts children as well. And researchers have noticed that in homes of parents with long-term service-related injuries, children may also be experiencing feelings of emotional distress, grief, feelings of anger or resentment, or misinterpretation of the manifestations of the parent's condition as a lack of love for the child. So again, on top of those typical child and teen life challenges, plus the military life-related obstacles, this group of military kids also has a unique additional set of challenges that can affect their mental wellness. Nikki?
Thanks, Catherine. Sorry about the slides. I apologize. We were having some technical difficulties with the slides there. So thank you for bearing with us. Everything that we've talked about so far has come from the adults and their studies and observations of children. But what do the kids think themselves? I think that's the most important, is to know what are kids saying themselves and about how they're doing and how they're dealing. So we have another poll question for you. We would love to know how many of you have heard of Bloom, Empowering the Military Teen. And so hopefully you should be able to see that poll now. And just let us know if you've heard of Bloom. You can also put it in the chat box. How many of you have heard of Bloom, Empowering the Military Teen? You may or may not have heard of it, but if you have, that'd be great. So feel free to share in the chat box for us and let us know. If you haven't, that's okay. Bloom is a really, okay. So some people have said yes, they've heard it on Bloom. They follow them on social media. Some of you have said no, you haven't heard of Bloom. Okay, so that's okay. So for those of you that aren't familiar with Bloom, Empowering the Military Teen, it's an online community for military teens to write, publish, and connect with each other. And we're going to put that link in your chat box so you can have that directly to their website. So most of us have probably observed that kids and teens in particular usually want to have their say in whatever is being talked about. And I have a 17, almost 18-year-old, so I can completely relate to this. And luckily, thanks to Bloom, in partnership with the National Military Family Association, or sometimes you hear referred to as NMFA, military teens got just that, the very opportunity to share their thoughts about their own lives in the Military Teen Experience Survey that was first conducted in 2021 and then again in 2022. So the results were sort of good and sometimes bad, and a few times a little bit ugly. The good news first is that most of our military teens have reported that they're at least okay. So about 63% have indicated moderate levels of well-being, but only 9% reported high levels of mental well-being. The not so good news, though, is that 28%, so over a quarter, scored their mental well-being as low. And on a separate question, 37% responded that they had thought about harming themselves or others. So even though a lot of our military kids are saying they're okay, a lot of them that are telling us that they're not. And I would venture to say there's some that maybe aren't even self-reporting. So some of these numbers could, potentially be a little bit higher. But back to the good news. When asked if they sought care for mental or behavioral health issues, about a quarter of them answered yes. So they said they are seeking that care, which would indicate that a good portion of the kids who are needing the help are getting it, which is really important. So this counts as good news because often early intervention can really help reduce the severity or persistence of a mental health challenge or crisis, and also prevent secondary disorders. The MCEC podcast recently hosted a podcast by Ross Sabo, the CEO of the Human Power Project, and award-winning mental health speaker, to talk about mental health in children and teens. And so we're putting that link in the chat box as well. It was an excellent podcast and very insightful. He's doing a lot of things with mental health education in schools in the California area. So we know well-being is critical really for our military connected children. So let's look at some of the things that we can do to support our kids' well-being, particularly at home. We can start by building those strong relationships and connections with our kids. A recent study examining the link between those military stressors. We know our military community is highly mobile, so they have very unique stressors that are occurring within their community, that those adolescents' perceptions of that parent-teen relationship quality and teen adjustment found that the quality of a parent-teen relationship contributes to teen adjustment. So they found a direct correlation between those two things. So in other words, if you as the parent focus on building a strong and positive relationship with your child, it can help your child in adjusting to the military lifestyle, which I think is really, really important. So in fact, family is a central source of support for many of our military children, given the frequent transitions and separations. So some of the things that we can do to strengthen our family relationships include having rituals, making everyone feel safe. So for example, if you sing a special song at night, doing that every night, regardless of where you are, whatever transition is happening. You could have other rituals that you do, reading a book, or maybe you all watch a favorite show together. So having those rituals is really important. Those traditions that you have in your family is really important. Families know that separation is a part of the military lifestyle, but even separations can serve as an opportunity to strengthen those bonds between parents and children, as well as relationships with extended family. So as the parent at home reaches out for support from grandparents, aunts, and uncles, so you can kind of have everyone get involved. These strong connections are vital because studies have found that having a strong relationship with at least one trusted adult can offset the effects of adversity. So we know it's important to have that at least one trusted adult in a child's life. We also encourage families to use these connections and others to build a web of support. Often this is done before a deployment or a separation, or when a family transitions, but it's also helpful for when the family is together. So that web of support is just a list of people, of those trusted adults and or peers, so it could be peers for our teens, that a family or an individual military child knows is trustworthy and can be relied upon. And the idea behind the web of support is that we want our children to have more than one person. We want them to have, maybe 3 or 4 individuals that are in their web of support. And this can really help them. This also ties into building a good team. We always say it takes a village. This is especially true for the military community. Surround your family with others in your community or extended family to give that support when you need it. And I don't know how many of you are military connected here, and if you've ever been overseas, this rings true. You know, your neighbors become your family, so to speak, when you're living really far away. So this is a really important way that you can kind of build those relationships together. Another great way is to spend time together each night around the dinner table. If the service member is deployed or geographically separated from the rest of the family, pull the service member into the routine whenever possible, or if you're the service member, as best you can, and try to schedule time as often as possible to join your kids at the table. Maybe it's breakfast or it's snack time if dinner time isn't possible. So it's just one of those meals is really important. Talk about who your kid's eating lunch with, what games they played during PE, how are things going, especially if you have teens in middle and high school. You know, if they're studying for the SAT, maybe you do a few SAT prep questions at the table. I know your teens would love that, right? And highlight those positive accomplishments both inside and outside the classroom. We've listed the Family Dinner Project, which is a phenomenal resource to share highlight the importance of eating together as a family and the multitude of benefits that can be had from that. We'll put that link. We put that link in the chat box. I think Catherine has. And so it's just a great way. There's some conversation starters in there. There's some ways to kind of answer questions. I even think she includes some recipes that you could do together, kind of if you're cooking together as a family. That's a great resource. Also, having a significant person who's consistently present in a child's life can play a crucial role as well in helping them develop resilience. This person, often a parent or family member, is someone your child spends a lot of time with and knows they can turn to when they need help. And so I think that's as well really, really important to have. And I feel like this could be someone, this could be a coach, this could be a teacher, this could be someone that does an extracurricular activity, you know, that your child's involved with. It could be an extended family member. It could be someone like that. And then show your children how to problem solve. So we always like to say in our parent support webinars that as parents and as adults, we want to role model that positive behavior that we would like to see in our children. And so modeling is really important. We often don't let our children see us working through a problem. However, if they can observe us taking the steps to solve and work through those difficult problems and scenarios, our children will see that a problem is not the end of the world, just a challenge to be worked through. And then they can begin to build those skills in working through their own problems and developing some of those critical thinking skills that are really important as well. Another important element of monitoring and supporting our children's well-being is communication. I think I would say probably the overarching theme in our webinar today is really communication is key. The Clearinghouse for Military Family Readiness by Penn State has come up with some great tips for parents to help engage their children in helpful communication. Check-ins, or in our house, we like to call these pulse checks, is what we call them in our family, is a great way to regularly keep open communication with your child. It can be as simple as discussing who'll pick them up from school that day or how they're getting to soccer practice. But having that daily open communication with your child can create a really great environment where you feel more comfortable to engage in other topics as well. I don't know how many of you have teens, but I have a driving teen, and he always has to have his location shared. So for us, that's just a part of, you have been given the privilege to drive a vehicle. I need you to share your location at all times. That's a means of communication in our family as well. So quality family time, try to work in some special family times into your weekly calendar. So this could be Friday night pizza night. I'd love for you to share, actually, I'm going to throw this out. If any of you have some fun quality family time things that you do that are part of your routine, I'd love for you to share in the chat box. But this could be Friday movie night, pizza night. It could be playing board games. It could be a hike. It could be, I don't know, maybe you do a weekly trip to a fun place if you're new in a community. But these are really important. And it's really, the other piece is to be intentional with that quality family time as well. Routines. You will hear us say, do routine things routinely. We say it so many times. It's important. We are showing our love and respect for each family member with those routines. Oh, okay. Some people are sharing Friday evening treats, dinner and a TV show every night, fall weather, s'mores. I love these. These are fantastic. Thank you for sharing. Those are great ones. And can become a part of a routine for your family. We know that rituals and traditions give opportunities for more communication, which also helps foster that positive communication skills and togetherness. So routines can help our children feel safe, secure. It creates some predictability in their day, in their schedule. It's really great if you can have a consistent routine, and regardless of transitions, moves, PCSs, separations or deployments, try to kind of keep those routines in place. That leads us into boundaries. Boundaries can also help encourage discussion within families. We often decide to introduce something new to our child, such as a new phone app or TV show. We can use that as an opportunity to share boundaries around that new item or set expectations with those items as well. We also want to share a series of webinars we've hosted last year featuring Thrive. This is an initiative through the Clearinghouse for Military Family Readiness at Penn State, and we've put that link in the chat box to Thrive, as well as those webinars that have a lot of really great information that is, of course, beneficial to this whole topic of mental health and well-being. Okay, so we all have thoughts that make us feel worried or upset. I feel like I was worried or upset when the PowerPoint slides kept skipping back and forth. So let's use that as an example here this morning. So these kind of thoughts can make us feel sad, frustrated, or even angry. So we have the option of viewing situations in different ways. And thoughts will affect how we behave. If we have positive thoughts, a lot of times we can act positively. Negative thoughts, we behave negatively in a lot of ways. So the National Academies have come up with a great strategy for managing those hard thoughts. And I would challenge you to use this strategy with your children to kind of see how it works with them. So first step is that we're going to catch these thoughts. Ask yourself, what was I just thinking? For a child, it could be, I was thinking, I took a test today and I did really bad on that test. And so all I can think about is the fact that I did really bad. I didn't get a good grade. So, that could be a thought that your child is harboring. Step 2 is to check those thoughts. Are they helpful? Well, the answer for that, easier said than done, is probably no, because you don't have the test back yet. You don't know what your grade is. And so there's some waiting. So until then, you really are just kind of harboring maybe some of those negative thoughts. And then lastly, we need to change the thoughts that you have control over the way you think. What's another way to look at that situation? And so for the example that I'm giving, it could be that, you know what, I may have not done great on this test, but I can improve for next time. What can I do differently to make sure that I do better the next time a test comes around? And so it's kind of changing their thoughts a little bit. So you can download the National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine PDF about their well-being toolkit to help your youth or teen catch upsetting thoughts and change these thoughts. And we put those links to in your chat box. And also as adults, we can try this technique as well, because I think we end up doing the same thing our kids do. Catherine?
Thanks, Nikki. So we're going to talk about positive minds. And Sesame Street for Military Families has come up with some really great ways to help clear our minds during stressful times. As military families, we often have the challenge of those ever-changing schedules, the moves, the geographic separations. In order to really foster that positive mind in ourselves and our kids, we want to first build a peaceful and secure, strong mindset. So here are some ways to get started. First is to both practice and talk with your kids about finding calm even during stressful situations. And we can do this by using some calming techniques like closing your eyes and envisioning yourself in a safe and happy place. Maybe that's on the beach or at the lake. Maybe that's a cozy nook in your house or your grandparents' house, somewhere where you feel happy and safe. And then visualize and think about how it smells and how it sounds, and all go through the whole senses of what it's like to be in that safe place while taking some deep breaths. Another technique is using a thank you jar. Throughout the week, all the family members can add little thank you notes to each other, to different family members, for little things to big things, whether it's emptying the dishwasher or making a bed or holding the door open or reading a story. At the end of the week, then open the jar and read all of the thank you notes together. Read about all the kind things that the family did together and how grateful you are for it, for those little acts. This can really help kids and parents alike feel loved and valued and appreciated in your family. You can also use the same concept if you have a service member who is separated from the family, whether they're deployed or in training, by creating a mommy or a daddy drawer. This is where you have a drawer or a box or a place in your home where the child or children can add things to that box or drawer throughout the week, whether it's a picture that they drew or a piece of homework that they did or something that they wrote, a leaf that they thought was pretty, anything that they then want to share with the service member who is away the next time you get to talk or video chat or however you're communicating. Another technique is to practice paying it forward. That is encouraging your children to recognize when someone needs help and help. These simple acts of kindness not only help that person who's receiving the kindness, but also makes the person doing it feel good. So we let our kids have a chance to feel good when they help others. And also talk about using skills and strengths. Remind your children of their strengths and all the times they did succeed when things get hard. Remind them that they can do it. This helps them to then build that self-confidence and to be more resilient. Another resource that we want to share with you is a webinar that we did last fall with Lisa Howard of the Barry Robinson Center, which I'm so happy to see that mentioned, Barry Robinson Center mentioned a couple times in the chat box. And I'm sharing a link for that with you in the chat box, as well as a Sesame Street link. So let's talk about social media. By either a show of emojis or in the chat box, how many of your children are using social media? And this is a judgment-free zone. So whether the answer is yes or no, that's fine. In my house, it's mixed. The older one does, the younger one doesn't. The younger ones don't yet. I see definitely some yeses, or probably lots of yeses of mixed, yep, of whether or not kids are using social media. That's a tricky place to navigate for us as parents as well, right? Of whether or not that's appropriate or what we're going to do in our household. Social media can be very enticing to military connected tweens, teens, and even younger, partly because it can help them to keep in touch with their friends from other duty stations. A lot of teens and tweens are using it as the primary way to stay connected, both to those faraway friends, but even their local friends too. However, social media also has the potential to make even the most well-rounded child feel like they're less than, due to all those picture perfect, sometimes not realistically perfect filtered photos they see of other people or of lives, fancy glamorous lives posted on social media. Keeping our military connected kids from falling into those social media pitfalls can absolutely be a challenge. So we do have a couple of suggestions to hopefully help. One is, as Nikki mentioned, communication. Keep those lines of conversation open. And when you are discussing any issues that your child may be having with social media, let them know that their feelings are real and valid. Even if it's an argument that took place online or something that doesn't feel like a big deal to you. Most of our teens and tweens don't remember a time when social media wasn't a part of their social lives in one way or another, whether it's something they had or something they wanted to have and maybe asked you for many, many times. Help them to talk about their feelings when it comes to whatever's happening on social media and to share it with you. And just remember that even if it seems minor or silly to us as adults, it's not silly to them. It's important to them, and we want to validate the feelings that they're experiencing. Also, it's important that we keep the conversation open to help teens understand that not everything they're seeing online is true or real. For example, is the life of that friend that they're seeing really that great in person, or is that just how it's being portrayed online? Ask your kids questions like, how do you feel when you get lots of likes or hearts on something? Or how do you feel when you don't get lots of likes or hearts? And do you feel better or worse when you're spending time on social media? Just as Nikki mentioned, make sure you're checking in with them regularly to see how they're doing and how social media might be making them feel. We also encourage you to try having scheduled unplugging time as a whole family. Maybe even think about screen free Sundays or a day or even just an afternoon when not only the kids, but also the parent or parents in the home take time away from their screens. You can use this time to do something as a family, to bond over a new hobby or get outside together. I mean, a lot of military installations, you can get discounts on outdoor rentals for things like boats, kayaks, snowshoes, or skis. Get out there and do something so that everyone, adults and kids alike, are taking a break from their phone. Also, and this goes without saying, make sure your kid knows that you love them no matter what, exactly how they are, unfiltered in real life. This is, again, helping them build that confidence that they're going to need. So let's talk a little bit about self-care. Sesame Street for Military Families has put together some tips specifically for parents. We've heard that phrase, if you've ever been on an airplane, to put on your oxygen mask first before assisting others. True on airplanes, true in real life, especially those of us living this military lifestyle. We, as parents, really need to be our best strong selves in order to best support our children. And here are a couple ways to foster that self-care. One is physical self-care. This involves make sure we're nourishing ourselves with food, that we're getting the right amount of sleep as much as possible, and also getting in that movement or exercise, taking care of our physical bodies, just as we want our kids to. Also, emotional self-care. This means recognizing different emotions to help properly manage stress. One way to take care of ourselves is to know that it is absolutely okay to say no sometimes, or maybe many times. Another way is to write in a gratitude journal, ways, anything that's helping us to increase our emotional literacy. Also, social self-care. This is when we surround ourselves with a loving community, we spend time with our friends, we join groups, we meet new people. Often when we PCS, we're so worried about our kids making friends, but we, the adults, we need friends too. So we need to do what we can to make that time to make social connections for ourselves. Also, spiritual self-care. These are those ideas or those beliefs that are important to us that help guide our lives. Communities of faith, meditation are just some of the ways to help us develop our own spiritual awareness. And as with most things in life, all of these strategies take time and they take practice. So, but with time, we can hopefully make strides improving our own methods of self-care. So I would love to hear from you all in the chat box. What are some strategies that you have as a military family that you have found helpful for self-care? What are some things that you all are doing to take care of yourselves and keeping it manageable? Again, one strategy is that big one, don't be afraid to say no and to have boundaries with respect to your time and your family's time. What else are you all doing to take care of yourself as a family? I know for us, we do our very best to keep at least one day of the week mostly free with no scheduled activities. And even if we don't do anything special that day, everyone in the family just gets a chance to rest from all the practices and games and rehearsals and performances and things. So feel free to keep putting those in the chat box as you think of them, as as things come up. Another one that we hear a lot is a lot of times military families feel like we're just supposed to keep on keeping on and just push on through. But do you know that ignoring those feelings isn't the answer? Fear of feeling those emotions and not letting ourselves feel can sometimes be paralyzing. And there will be times when we just don't want to be resilient. And when that happens, be present in the here and the now and allow yourself the time and the space to have and experience those feelings. So we do want to share some more resources and talk about how to obtain immediate help. because we want you to know that it's okay to not be okay and to say that you're not okay, because you are not alone. But we also want you to equip yourself right now with the resources so that you know how and where to seek help. There is, for a wealth of interactive tools and activities for both kids and parents, the National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine has some interactive tools. I'm going to put a link to that in your chat box. And it's also in the resource that Nikki shared earlier. For immediate mental health concerns, you can contact the Military One Source for non-medical counseling. Also, there's the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. And Nikki's going to talk a little more about this, 988. You can call or text. There's also the Crisis Text Line, Trevor Lifeline, or the Trans Lifeline. And we're going to put links to all of those resources there in your chat box. Nikki?
Okay, there's some really fantastic resources, and I'm going to go ahead and share again the resource. I know earlier someone asked about the links and said they weren't able to click on the links. Everything that we're putting in the chat box that Catherine's putting in there is also in that downloadable resource. So I went ahead and shared that again as well. So we're going to talk about something that's, of course, a really difficult subject. On July 16th, the United States transitioned its 10-digit national suicide prevention lifeline simply to 988. The new 3-digit number is confidential, it is free, and it is available 24 hours, 7 days a week, every day of the year. And so I just want to say that one more time. It is free and it's available 24 hours, 7 days a week, every day of the year, which is really, really important for all of us to know. There's also a chat feature that's available on the website. The 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline offers access to trained counselors who can help people experiencing mental health related distress. It can also be used if someone is worried about a loved one or who may need crisis support. We also hosted a webinar with Dr. Gregory Luskin, who is on our Science Advisory Board at MCEC, on this tough topic. And so we'll put the link, actually, Catherine's already put the link to that webinar in the chat box, and it's actually fantastic webinar. And we actually have another podcast that we did on the loss, grief, and the loss of a loved one. So a lot of resources that we have here at MCEC. So please remember 988, really important 3-digit number. So at MCEC, we have so many resources, and we have the Military Child Wellbeing Toolkit, which is an amazing resource. It really is. This toolkit is online, and it provides evidence-based content meant to foster the emotional intelligence, mindfulness, and overall well-being of military children, as well as students of military families living with post-traumatic stress disorder, traumatic brain injuries, or any other injuries. And you can access that through the link that we put in the chat box. And it also is in that downloadable resource. It really has so many components to it. So if you are a parent, if you are an educator, if you are a professional, mental health and wellness professional or medical professional working with our military connected children, the toolkit is really fantastic and has some really great resources. So in our final thoughts, we just, again, want to say thank you for attending the webinar today. We hope it was informative and somewhat interactive. We know it's never too soon to start taking care of our kids as well as our own mental health. We hope you've gleaned some strategies and resources to start using them in your own home. And if you are an educator or professional, hopefully some resources that you can utilize with those students that you work with. And above all, please reach out for professional help anytime you think you or someone in your family might need it. Sometimes it's just knowing where to go when you're in that situation or in that position where you're feeling challenged. So again, thank you so much for attending. And Catherine is going to share some more of MCEC's wonderful resources.
Thanks so much, Nikki. So we just want to thank you all again so much for joining this webinar today. And we would like to invite you to take our survey for today's webinar. You can do that by clicking on that link that I just put in your chat box, or you can use that QR code there you see right on your slide. All you have to do is after you access the survey, you'll just put in the 4-digit webinar number, which is 0924, and be sure to hit submit at the end of the survey. If you don't fill out the survey now, following the webinar, you will get an email invitation to take that survey. Again, we use this as a tool to make ongoing improvements to our webinar series and also add new topics of interest and to provide some feedback to our funders. So we would love it if you would just take those 2 or 3 minutes to complete the survey. If you've missed one of our previous webinars, or especially if you'd like to share this session, or if you missed some of this section or had any technical difficulties, all of our webinars are recorded and you can find those on our webpage as well as on YouTube. And I'm going to put links to both of those here in your chat box. There may be a few days delay before those pop up for today's webinar, but you can access all of our webinars there. We also want to invite you to take part in our many online professional institute opportunities. And you can also find us on Facebook and follow MCEC on Instagram and all those social media handles that you see right there. We also invite you to check out SchoolQuest. It is an online interactive tool designed to support highly mobile military families and students. It has tons of resources and tips to help students achieve academic success and well-being. We'd love for you to sign up today. It is free to sign up and completely free to use, and also share with others that you think might be useful. As we've mentioned, the Military Child Wellbeing Toolkit. First, we'll talk about the military student consultants. If you ever find yourself with any questions, concerns, or education-related issues for your military-connected child and you cannot find the answer anywhere, reach out to our military student consultants, or MSCs. They are the premier resource to help you with all of your questions. If they cannot answer you right away, they will do the research and get an answer for you. So this is a great place for any of those fun, twisty, complicated questions. You can email them at msc@militarychild.org. The Military Child Wellbeing Toolkit was developed for parents, school professionals, behavioral mental health professionals, community leaders. This, again, is a tool that is absolutely full of resources for all aspects of the military connected child's well-being, and we would love for you to explore it on our website and to also share with others. In just a moment, I'll put a link for that in your chat box. We also want to let you know about our Purple Star Readiness Echoes, or professional learning communities. These trainings are used as a follow-on to Purple Star School Support or 360 Summits. We will meet monthly to address best practices and common challenges in specific regions for those getting the Purple Star School designation. To learn more, you can use that QR code that you see on your screen, or click on the link that I'm going to put in the chat momentarily. We also want you to save the dates for our Global Training Summit next year. It will be on July 29th through the 31st in Washington, D.C. Also, if you are interested in getting a certificate of completion, please complete that online survey. And if you'd like to receive a webinar survey for a recorded webinar, please contact research@militarychild.org. We would love for you to join us for one of our future webinars on Tuesday, October 31st on Halloween. We've got helping your military connected child navigate stress. And then the next day on November 1st, we have study skills for high school students, and all of our webinars start at noon Eastern time. So again, we just want to give a special thanks to the Navy and Child Youth Programs for making today's webinar possible. And again, we want to thank all of you for being here today and also for your participation. And we hope you have a great day.